All right, well, good morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. We're in Nehemiah chapter 4. This is episode 380, and I entitled this Responding to the Threat. And we're going to pick up here in verse 10, and we're beginning to see the repercussions of this hard labor and then the threats on top of that. If you could put yourself in these folks' shoes, you would understand this. Oftentimes, understanding the Bible means being not too hard on the folks that we're reading about, considering how you might feel if you were there with them. And so they have been, as I said, industrious about this gigantic job. And here's what we begin to read in verse 10 in regards to this as we pick up in chapter 4. It said, and Judah said, and when it says Judah here, these are those that are back in Judah or in the south. So it's just talking about a region and the people that live there. It says, and Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed. And the bearers of burdens has to deal with the fact that the walls have been down, and we're going to just read it in the rest of this verse. And before you can build, you have to remove the rubbish. I mentioned this several times. It's just in ruin, and you have to move the brokenness of it before you can get to a place where you can work. That's what they're going to say here. So those that are engaged in clearing things out are decayed because it's stone. It's a stone wall. It's the wall of Jerusalem. I mean, I can't imagine what it would take to move this stuff. All right, and the Bible doesn't tell us. I'd have to get into more of the history of what that is. I mean, I'm sure someone's done a tremendous amount of work on that particular passage. It says, and Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. I mean, they're saying we have been, the strength of those that are engaged in this labor is just we're starting to wear out. And that's what happens. I mean, you begin to fatigue, and the pushing and pushing and pushing. Finally, your body just can't take it, and you need to take a break here. Everybody's level there is a little different, but that's what we're seeing here. It was hard work, is the point, and it goes on and it says, and. So there's the rubbish and just the labor itself. And our adversary said, they shall not know, neither see, till we come in the midst among them and slay them and cause the work to cease. That is, and I mentioned this before, there is so much rubble around that they could be easily, by stealth, the enemy could come up and approach them without being seen. That's what's up, and they're concerned about that because there's so much rubble. The enemy could just go through the crooks and the crannies of the rubble and hide themselves, and then at an appropriate time attack. And so all of these things are now on everyone's mind. Just going out and clearing rubbish now could be it always was, but more so a dangerous act because of the threats that are being made by the people that live in the region. And the fact that there's all this rubbish here doesn't help things. So it says in verse 12, and it came to pass that when the Jews were which dwelt by them, they said unto us 10 times, from all places whence ye shall return unto us, they will be upon you. And so, I mean, just more discouragement. Therefore set I in the lower places, and it says 10 times here too. The idea is that this is like perpetual discouragement. This is something, even as I say it here, how discouraged can you be when you start something? And there's plenty of people that are just going to tell you that you can't do it. And this really gets me, especially when it comes to young people. When you get a little older, you're able just to, push it aside because what do they know? And same thing is here of Nehemiah. But I just want to put a plug in here for encouraging young people. Adults have a habit of being able or thinking that they can see the future. And when they see a little person who has an idea, before the idea can even be generated, they put a stop to it, or they discourage them so they don't pursue it any further. It's like the first kid, and I know this is just an illustration, but can you imagine the first little kid that had a block of wood in their hand and was talking on it like it was a phone, and somebody said, "Oh, that's stupid." Oh yeah, and we all have one now. Because we're made in the image of God, the our imaginations and our abilities to accomplish things are endless because in a finite relative way we're made like God, and in that same finite and relative way we can create. Now, not out of not ex nihilo, not out of nothing, but there wasn't so long ago there was no such thing as a cell phone, right? And now there are, because in that relative and finite way, that cell phone was created because of the mind of man. That's the capacity we have because we're made like God. I mean, we're never going to be God, but He made us in our image, in His image. And so the idea that you would discourage a little person from even the most outlandish things, because the most outlandish things put in the hand of an inventor and a thinker and a genius can happen, is the point. And maybe that little kid is going to come up with the idea. So encourage them. This is really a pet peeve of mine. I can tell I still have the old nature. The discouragement of young people really grinds me. As if you, whoever you are as an adult, know the future and where you are in life cannot be surpassed by this young person that's going to raise in this next generation. Oh yeah, you might end up working for this little kid. Is the point? So encourage them, all right, and build them up. So that's what it says. And it came to pass that when the Jews which dwelt by them came, they said unto us 10 times, from all places whence ye shall return unto us, they will be upon you. That is, they're just, you're going to be under constant attack. This is the way they are in this area. All right, they hate Israel, they hate Jews, and you're doing this, and they're just going to come on you. But this is just constant reminder that you have to just fight through. And then it goes on verse 13. Therefore said I, in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places, I even set the people after their families with swords, their spears, and their bows. So what's he do? In the low places where they'll sneak in, the high places where you have the advantage, they're armed. That is the point. These folks are just armed. It doesn't say here that they have in one hand they have a trowel and the other one they have the sword. These people just have swords, spears, and bows. This is as close as you can get to Nehemiah's militia to deal with the army we saw back here in chapter 4, verse 2, with the encroachment or the potential encroachment of the Samaritan army. He is got to keep the wall up. He got to keep building it, but now he needs to take some just to serve in the military as protectors. And it says, and I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, be ye not afraid of them. And that is huge, because fear paralyzes. You've heard me say that countless times. Fear paralyzes. During COVID, I saw fear paralyzing people. Now, for anyone that had their head up, they knew after about 2 weeks that this COVID thing was a hoax. I mean, I'm not saying there's not such a thing as COVID, but what Fauci was saying was a bunch of lies. Everybody that had their head screwed on straight knew that what he was saying. He was just a bald-faced liar. He had his own political agenda, and this whole idea of 6 feet, like between one another. How foolish can that be? How many times did I get into discussions with people like 6 feet, like this germ or whatever can't go 6 feet, or and then they put plastic up here like it can't go over the top or around, or this little piece of plastic that you have hanging in front of the cashier, or that this mask, which has gigantic holes in it compared to the size of the germ, can't get through this. The whole thing was a crock right from the beginning, and still. With that going on, people by themselves in their cars, you drive by people in their cars by themselves wearing a mask. It was all entirely nonsense, and it's all coming out now in these judicial or in these Senate hearings. I mean, it's just it's absolute nonsense what happened. But the point is that knowledge of that or that propaganda paralyzed people, paralyzed them. They were fearful, and that paralyzed them almost literally. Can't go outside, can't do this, can't do that. all right, because of the fear that was placed in them. And so that's what fear does. And fear it's something that exists, but there may be nothing really out there to fear. All right. Uh, that's what Nehemiah is saying. He said, we're getting things in place. There is an enemy out there, but we're taking care of this. And he tells them not to be afraid. Don't be paralyzed, because tomorrow you have to get up Tomorrow you have to get up and you have to build the wall. We're still in the business of wall building. So he says, be not ye afraid of them. Okay, now what does he say to get people not to be paralyzed with fear? Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible. Who is bigger? Who is stronger? Who is great and terrible? It's the God we serve that put us on this trajectory and put us on this path. All right. That's why you should not be paralyzed, because your energy, your strength is the great and terrible God, which is a lot more powerful than those individuals that are over there on that side. He said, and fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters and your wives and your houses. God's on our side, and fight for your house. I mean, it's different when you are fighting like a mercenary fighting somewhere else. But can you imagine? Because here in the United States, we're under constant threat. But what our enemies have never seen here in America, and I don't know if they don't want to test us. They do not want to test us to see. Now, maybe in some of these Democratic-run cities, I mean, where they're already giving up everything, which are only these little pockets in America of the blue. The blue is all in the metropolitan area. The rest of the nation, from sea to shining sea, is red. We are a conservative nation, except for the urban areas. In the urban areas, I mean, if you live in one of those urban areas, and it's happening, I don't have to tell you, you need to get out. They're leaving California. They're leaving New York. All right. You have to get out, because the leadership there, it's almost like demonic confusion for people to vote and to put people in power that are there just to subjugate them. But that's what, it's interesting. Back in 1984, that's what George Orwell said. I mean, we would just cheer our way to slavery. And that's what's happening in these urban centers. But you do not want to test the United States, because we're talking about now, this is my home. This is my family. I have sons and daughters. No one has ever been here on the mainland and tested us as Americans when it comes to protecting our homeland. But they're talking about it. They're thinking about it. They're preparing for it. But I don't think they've ever been in a real fight until they see that. And that is what Nehemiah is saying. He's saying, fight for your brethren. Fight for the man on the right and the left. Fight for your sons. Fight for your daughters. Fight for your wives and your houses and your property. Isn't that interesting? Because that in the Declaration of Independence, when it talks about the pursuit of happiness, that all has to do with material goods. The pursuit of happiness includes your house. Yeah, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is those things that are material. It involves that. So here, right in the Bible, you have life, liberty. We're going to stay free. We're going to stay alive, and we're going to keep our houses. All right. We're going to fight for the property that God, by His grace, has blessed us with. And same thing here. This is Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. And it says, and it came to pass when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and God had brought their counsel to naught. That is, when we armed them, when we were prepared for them, and now we're not just cowering and letting them roll over us. When they found out about that, and God had brought their counsel to naught. And that's the other thing. We never know what God's doing to confound the other side. I mean, the other side has their own problems as well. And sometimes we promote them in our own thinking more than we should, because God is confounding their counsel. It's not working. He said, that we returned all of us to the wall, every man unto his work. That is, when they decided it's a bad idea because they're going to put us up against somebody that's going to fight back, they said, we're not doing that. There is such a gigantic principle here. When they found out someone was going to shoot back, they stopped and said no. And then those that were going to protect Israel just went back to building because the guys that were going to come in decided it wasn't worth it if they were going to get shot back at. That is why, if the world today could see this, because we have these signs out in front of school, a gun-free zone where there's nobody to shoot back. And the liberals are so wrong. The safety officer in the school who is armed, the fact that he is there is going to keep someone else from coming in and shooting up the school because he will shoot back. And here it is in the Bible, BC. When they found out that they were armed on the wall with arrows and swords and spears and that their counsel had been brought to naught, they decided against attacking because it was going to be too risky. And so Nehemiah says, yeah, they're not coming, so we'll just get back to building the wall. That is why these security officers, safety officers that they put in the school is such a good idea, and why wherever there is a place, it's called a gun-free zone, is a ridiculous invitation to someone to come and shoot somebody. I mean, I love it when you walk into a store and they welcome those that conceal or open carry. I mean, it's right on the door. You're welcome. Those places don't get robbed. The people that are walking around armed are places where nobody gets robbed. It's people where they're not armed that get robbed. Why? Because nobody's there to shoot back. I'm telling you, this is a biblical principle. We see it right here. When he put them up on the wall, they decided against it. You put a safety officer in the school, get rid of all these gun-free zones. Up here in Alexandria, they try to make all this public space, these parks and all of that. We fought hard against that. I don't know what happened. Wherever you limit a weapon in the hand of a good guy, you're allowing a bad guy to shoot somebody without repercussions. That is just the way it is. All right, and here we have it. And wait, I haven't said anything here about Second Amendment because there's no such thing as a Second Amendment here in Nehemiah. It's the principle. It's just when our founding fathers wrote this down, it just makes perfect sense, right? It's just, yeah, you want to do that because you're going to need that because that's the only way it works. And then we wrote it down and called it the Second Amendment, but it started as a biblical principle way in BC. Okay, so you can either argue Second Amendment or you can argue it's in the Bible. So let's keep going. Verse 16. And it came to pass from that time forth that the half of my servants wrought in the work. Now here is where this is what we're familiar with, where he divides things up. They go back to work and he divides the people. He says, half of my servants wrought in the work. So it's going to slow things down. There's no doubt about it but he's got this enemy on the outside. He cuts his workforce in half. Half are going to continue to build the wall. And it says, and the other half of them held both the spears, the shields, and the bows, and the habergeons, and the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. And so there you have it. We're going to divide the workforce up because that the enemy is still out there, and you never know when he might think that he's got an advantage. So we're going to split up our crew, and half of us are going to be prepared to go to war right now, and the other half are going to build the wall. This is the decision that Nehemiah made. Now you're saying to yourself, well, it's going to diminish the building of the wall, but that's why you have to adjust your schedule when you're building. That's the thing that we're seeing here. You have to adjust your schedule. Sometimes the trajectory you're on, there's things that come up that need an adjustment. And that adjustment is going to, in the end, is what you need. It might prolong the work, but you're saying to yourself, when you start weighing things, you say, yeah, we're going to have to make this adjustment. The work is going to slow down just a little bit because I'm going to have to take part of the workforce just to make sure everybody's safe. And this, I don't say this is a setback. I say this is a necessary adjustment to the schedule because of the circumstances that they find themselves in. And so if you're in a building program and something comes up, I was just thinking, it was just really bad timing, but it was of the Lord. here, one of the adjustments that we had when we were building the school. I mean, I'm in college, but when Dad was building the school up there in Emmanuel, they had all, when you put up the trusses and you line them all up, all right, and you just have stringers holding them up before you actually get the roof on. When we were right there, we had these crazy straight line winds, hard straight line winds. And once one began to tip, they tip, 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 tip. It didn't go all the way down the roof because it was a long building, but I'd say maybe a third of those trusses tipped over on the roof, and there's pictures of it. I mean, it's part of the construction process. Now, that realigned the schedule. Of course, the building's up there. It's been used for school and church. It's a spectacular facility. Don't get me wrong, but in the process, there was a setback. It was because of the nature and at the timing, and everything just had to fall together. And there you have it. All right. So and so you have to make an adjustment. That's the point. Here, this is more treacherous, of course. Although I don't know. I think maybe I can't remember. I'm not going to say it. But anyway, that's what happened. And then verse 18. For the builders, everyone had his sword girded by his side, and so builded. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me. And I'll just bring it to a close here. No, wait. I only have a little bit more to go. So he's got the trumpet because we're going to see here that the trumpet is going to be like the communications guy. So you have the commander, and you got the guy with the radio who is directing everything. So the guy with the trumpet is standing next to Nehemiah. And if they are under attack, they are going to blow the trumpet, and the trumpeter is going to give a certain sound, and they're going to be able to direct what part of the wall they're being attacked and where people should go. That's what's happening here. So let's keep going here. Let's see. Here we go. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me. And I said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, the work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall, one far from another. Yeah, they're a long way apart. In that place, therefore, you hear the sound of the trumpet. Resort ye thither unto us, our God shall fight for us. Wherever you hear the trumpet sound, come there. That is where we are under attack. I put 4 things in the margin of my Bible here. Number 1, they set a watch. Number 2, they were armed. Number 3, they had a trumpet warning. And number 4, later we're going to see they moved behind the wall. Those are the 4 things that Nehemiah does to care for his people in this process. So that's the trumpet thing. In what place, therefore, you hear the sound of the trumpet, resort ye thither unto us, our God shall fight for us. So we labored in the work. Half of them held the spear from the rising of the morning till the stars appeared. Likewise, at the same time said I unto the people, let every one with his servant lodge within Jerusalem. That is, because some are living outside the wall. He's saying you got to come inside because we don't have the wall done, but it's much more secure on the inside than it is on the outside. Let every one with his servant lodge within Jerusalem, and in the night that they may be a guard to us and a labor on the day. So neither, this is great. This is just the way it goes. Verse 23 of all the things that are recorded in God's word. So neither I nor my brother nor my servants nor the men of the guard which followed me, none of us put off our clothes. We didn't change our clothes, saving that everyone put them off for washing. That was it. I mean, he's just talking about the commitment they had. I mean, when we had to wash them, and it doesn't say how frequently, then they got into some more clothes. But other than that, they never changed. They slept in their shirts and pants. They lived in their shirts and pants. I mean, and it talks about everybody here. I mean, they were diligent in protecting one another and continuing the work of the building of the wall. And let me give you those 4 things again. They set a watch. The first thing, they armed one another. He armed them. There was the trumpet warning, which we just read about, and he moved everyone behind the wall. That is for greater protection and security. Those are the 4 steps Nehemiah takes here as we come to the end of chapter 4, as they are taking steps to respond to the threats that are coming their way. Now, can you just imagine living through this, being part of this? And this is a biblical record we're reading of. But can you imagine being in this time? And well, anyway, the Word of God is an amazing book. It is full of wisdom. It is full of wisdom that that has endured forever. It is. It is the Word of God. It's not isolated to some historic epoch. We're talking about a particular historic epoch, but the things we learn of it continue to be true today, and that's one reason I wanted to study theology. There's no end to it. You're thinking thoughts after God, which you will never exhaust. After you're in heaven 3 trillion years, you will never exhaust the mind of God. That is where we're going to be. You talk about expanding your thinking, your mind, your knowledge, wisdom. I mean, we've only got our little toe in the water of what God has prepared for us. I mean, it's going to be more than we could ever imagine. More than we could ever imagine. All right, but you got to make sure you're going there. You got to make sure that you've accepted Christ as your Savior, because there's so much more for the glorified saint in glory than we'll ever know here. I mean, we only have the earnest of our inheritance. When the full inheritance in Jesus Christ is ours, I mean, it's more than we can imagine. It's going to be just a remarkable thing. All right. All right. Well, that's it. This is, Thursday? So one more tomorrow, and start chapter 5, and we'll see how far we get through chapter 5. But the Lord bless you. You have a great day. Serve the Lord well. And the Lord willing, we'll see everybody tomorrow. Okay, we'll see you. Bye.